Welcome back to the Momentum Sports Podcast. Derek, are you ready to talk about Ohio State and Oregon?
Oh yes, let's get it on. Let's get it on.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit. Let's go over the game, what we think of both teams, and kind of the expectation for both sides moving forward. Like, what do we expect from Oregon moving forward? Where do we think they're at? And then the same thing for Ohio State. What do we think Ohio State is after this game, and where do you think they should be at? But let's kind of start with the game itself. Thoughts of just everything that transpired. What did you think of the game?
Well, here's the thing. I knew one thing. I knew that Oregon had a sloppy start.
Mm,
But here's the one thing I heard from a lot of people. What I heard who Ohio State was playing, that they had a solid defense. They had a solid offense. They were all around team. But we found out that Oregon exposed that defense, especially in the deep ball. And when they threw in the deep balls in the first half, they
yep.
exposed a lot. That was a lot of their points came from were deep balls. And in the second half, Ohio State decided to adjust to that and bring back safeties, and then they started running, and then they started throwing short passes, getting good gains on those, and exposed that. So it tells you that maybe Ohio State isn't as strong on defense as we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. I was I was really on the Ohio State bandwagon for a little bit about how much talent they had, the coaching staff, everything. Like you were saying, I heard about
Mhm.
how great the defense is, or it was supposed to be, and honestly, it was just kind of disappointing watching it all unfold with what I expected from Ohio State. And props to Oregon. I thought that they had a great game plan. The atmosphere was insane, and like you were saying, that they figured out Ohio State's weakness and just kept throwing the deep ball. And that's something about Big Ten schools is there's not a whole lot of passing offenses that are really,
Mhm.
really good at it. Yes, you can pass the ball if you're in the Big Ten, but like you don't have gunslingers in the Big Ten generally. And this is a Pac-12 school, until this year. This was an ex Pac-12 school that can really sling it, and it really exposed those Big Ten DBs in Ohio State. So, Ohio State needs to learn how to close out ball games too. If they're in
Mhm.
another close ball game at the end, I'm concerned if I'm an Ohio State fan, because that management at the end of the game, getting a minute and 44 seconds, I think it was, and going down the field, they just got sloppy there at the end. They let the clock run after a penalty. Then and by the way, whenever there's a penalty on the offense, the clock is able to run, or they're not able to run, but the clock will run. If it's on defense, there's different rules for the clock management and things like that. But uh, Will Howard, what was he doing sliding at the end of the game? Um, just really poor execution on Ohio State's end. And yeah, after this, I think a lot of things got exposed for Ohio State, and I'm not really sure that they are that juggernaut team that everybody was kind of expecting preseason.
Well, you gotta understand, it's West Coast offense that was played by Oregon.
Yeah.
That's what brings the deep balls in and all the passing like that. That's
Right,
West
that's what I
Coast.
was saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's not in the Big 10. That's not something that Ohio State is used to playing in the Big 10.
You better start learning because you got USC, you got Oregon.
Yeah, you hear that,
They're always
guys? Y'all
gonna
better
play
start
that.
learning.
Here's the thing: you want to be a champion, you gotta learn to capitalize. You can't learn to capitalize.
Yep.
Well, guess what? You're just gonna be left behind.
And Penn
Survival of the
State,
fittest, right?
Yeah, and Penn State was the same thing. They got exposed against USC. Penn State ended up winning that game, but it was the same kind of thing that these Big Ten defenses have a hard time against teams that can really sling the ball. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting just to kind of see what happens next for Ohio State. They're not going to be playing. It doesn't look like that they're going to be playing the same type of offense that they faced with Oregon again. They played Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, at Northwestern, Indiana, Michigan. None of those teams can sling the ball near the same way that Oregon can. And that may actually really hurt Ohio State in the playoffs. Um, it's just you got to get that figured out, and you got to get the end of game management figured out. And this just seems to be a consistent thing with Ryan Day. He can't close out these big games. So,
Yep.
mm-hmm. Um, well,
Find a way
let's
to
go to
win.
the Oregon side of things. Let's kind of praise them a little bit. Um, like you were saying, they slung the ball. They played very smart. They outcoached Ohio State, and they finished that ball game. Unlike Ohio State, I still am a little bit. Um, I don't know what I think of Oregon yet. They've had some slow starts to early in their schedule, and yes, they did outcoach Ohio State, but this was kind of their Super Bowl, and it
Mhm.
was at home. It was packed. I don't know if I'm ready to say that they're the real contenders for like a natty or anything like that, because that is what some people are thinking, that this was basically kind of a national championship type of matchup here. And
Yep.
I'm just not convinced about Oregon just yet. And let's see if there are. So they kind of have a similar schedule ahead of them. They play Purdue. They go to or they host Illinois. They play Michigan, Maryland. They go to Wisconsin. They host Washington. I think that there's a good chance Oregon wins out here. Um, it's very
Mhm.
likely, I think, but I just don't know. I don't know. There's just something about Oregon where they always come close, but they never finish the deal.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Oregon, they're West Coast. Their defense was exposed too. Yes, Ohio State has a great offense. They have a great receiver as well.
Yeah,
But the fact is you can't let a team do that if you want to win a championship. You have to
right.
have defense, and in the end, defense wins championships. And I
Mm-hmm.
did not see that against Ohio State. Now it could be based on a caliber team, probably, but we
Yeah,
won't know.
that's a
In
good
the end,
point.
in the end, I think it'll be Ohio State and Oregon in the champ. I mean, Ohio State and Oregon in the Big Ten championship. They will both go
Mm-hmm.
into the playoffs. That's for sure. Depending who wins that game will depend who gets the bye. So,
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a really good point about offense and defense. You've got to have a good defense to win a championship. You can possibly get to the championship with offense alone, like that's the absolute furthest. But if you don't have a solid defensive squad, you're not going to win the whole thing. And you may win
yep.
a couple big games. You may even win a playoff game with just offense alone. But you've got to be able to be good on the defensive side of the ball. All the great teams are, and I just don't know if that's Oregon's identity yet. So
Hmm.
that's why I'm a little skeptical. I definitely think Oregon is a top 5 team as of right now. I think that they're doing really well. Um, but if the goal here is national championship, which I think it should be, I think as an Oregon fan, you know what you got coming back. You just beat Ohio State. Like you want to get near or at that national championship game. I would think now. Like that should be the expectation now after watching them beat Ohio State.
Oh yeah.
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 Well, do you want to add anything else about kind of what we expect from both fan bases here before we close this one out, Derek?
I have nothing else to add. I think it was a very offensive game, no defense, and hopefully they work on that and see what happens throughout the rest of the season.
All right. Derek, are you ready to talk about the Red River rivalry and what happened
Oh
there in
yeah,
Dallas?
what happened is oh you still suck, still sucks. What? Oh
Oh
you
man.
sucks.
So
Oh you
Derek,
sucks.
hey there, Derek. We all know Derek's a Texas fan, so he was really enjoying it. I was watching the game with old Derek over the weekend, and he was having a field day watching this game. But Derek, I got to ask you, from a Longhorn perspective, Longhorn fan perspective here, is Texas that good, or is OU that bad, or is it a mixture of both?
Let me put it here. Let me go down the stats really quick before I answer that. Both teams.
Mm-hmm.
Texas had 17 first downs all game.
Yep.
OU had 18 first downs. All right. Time of possession. Texas had 27 minutes and 53 seconds and time possession. OU had 32 minutes and 7 seconds in time possession. By thinking of that, pretty close in time possession, pretty close in first downs. All right. You would think this game would be closer, right?
Right.
No, no, because Texas knows how to do things. Yes,
Wow, that's
Brewers.
crazy.
Uh,
Not to cut you off real quick, but eight OU had more first downs.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. All
It,
right,
it,
keep going.
it's now. Now here's the thing. It shows that Texas has a really good defense because
Yeah.
it also shows that Ewers wasn't on par, and you got to think Ewers is out for 3 weeks. I mean, you knew he was going to start out rusty. You knew it. He threw an
Mhm.
interception. It was going to happen. He just needed to get back on par. This is that on par game, and now you guys face a very good opponent next this coming week. But now you ask, who was better? Was Texas better, or was OU just bad? I think Texas wasn't as right there on offense, but I also believe the contribution of OU's defense did make a factor into that situation in the beginning. And what happened was Texas defense in the second quarter helped Texas score 21 points. It wasn't Texas offense. So that OU Sooner defense is still pretty good. They're I'm not going to say that the Sooner defense is bad. No, we all knew going into this game that the Sooner offense was not good. They were out 7 wide receivers, is what I believe. 7. So they didn't have anything. The only thing they rely on was their defense because in the third and fourth quarter, Texas only scored 3 in the third, 10 in the fourth. You
Mhm.
know, but their defense is what made Texas great, and they stopped that mediocre offense. So OU is still prime defense. It showed it. It's just the Texas defense it just was a lot better. So
I
yeah, I believe it depends how
hmm.
you look at things.
I I don't see how the OU defense can be that good if we were just looking at the stats and the numbers look fairly similar in a lot of these categories. And Texas has
Mhm.
34 points and OU has 3.
Like I said, the Texas
Well,
defense that did a lot of it.
it seems like that. What do you mean? The Texas defense did a lot of it.
Two
OU
fumbles.
OU had 2 turnovers. That's not 34 points.
They could say a lot. The defense did a lot against the offense. The offense couldn't do anything. They were punting. I mean, you look at their play
Both
by
the
play.
turnovers were at like the center of the field.
Look at this. Okay, play by play. It was Texas had ball first, interception.
Right.
Then missed field goal by OU. Then
Yeah.
punt, Texas punt. Let's go OU since we want to talk about OU's offense. Miss field goal, punt, field goal, punt, punt, fumble, fumble into half.
Right.
That was the
And what did Texas do on those offensive possessions?
okay. The Texas first one interception. The first half interception, punt, punt, touchdowns, 10 plays, 75 yards. All right. Then they punt, then a touchdown, 4 plays, 84 yards, and then touchdown, 1 play, 43 yards because of the fumble, and then 6 plays, 12 yards, missed field goal, but they had a fumble. They capitalized on that field goal.
Hmm.
So yeah, it had a mixture of defense. Now there's that point of getting away in those two possessions. But if you look uh, at the second quarter, Texas was downs, field goal, and touchdown towards the end. Probably when you know the OU Sooners were just giving up, and that was like with a minute and 6 seconds of 3 plays, of 52
Hmm.
yards, and that's stopping OU on downs as well. So yeah, there was no punt, so they have that big far yardage that they needed to get
Yeah.
as well. So
I
I mean,
yeah.
yeah. Besides that stretch of those big yards in the first half, OU did their job.
Yeah, most of Texas's points were in the second quarter. So, outside of the second
Most of
quarter,
yeah.
they only scored 3 and 10 in the third and fourth quarter. The first quarter they did not score. So, the second quarter, Texas did have a burst. I will give them that. That probably had a lot to do with it. It was just a burst of momentum that got them 3 scores. But man, OU is now 1-2 in the conference, and their one win is against Auburn, who is 0-3 in the conference or 0-2 in the conference. One of those. And that was one that OU really should not have won. They were lucky to win that game. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
to be honest with you, I'm looking at the rest of OU's schedule. They play South Carolina next, then they go to Ole Miss. They play Maine, which is non-conference. They go to Missouri, they play Alabama, and then they go to LSU. What other SEC wins do you see on this schedule? I don't think they're going to beat South Carolina. I think South Carolina is hungry for a win because they keep getting so close. And I think OU is the perfect opportunity for South Carolina to get a win. Going to Ole Miss is pissed. They want to redeem themselves and show that they're legit. At Missouri, same thing. Missouri has had some struggles and they're trying to get back at it. Coming back home to a crowd at Missouri, you already know, I'm sure you've heard, Derek, there's a bunch of chattering between the two fan bases of OU and Missouri. If you think that Mizzou's going to be a quiet stadium, you're out of your mind. They're going to be electric in that. Alabama, good luck. You're not beating Alabama, OU. At LSU, again, good luck. So, after watching this game and watching how OU goes, I mean, I only see all the rest of the games except for one or conference games, and I have them losing all of those conference games. They may get one, maybe two. I don't see them getting more than 2 conference games, and then that would put them at 6-6 at best, in my opinion.
Oh, so you're saying they barely make a bowl game? And that's what you're saying?
Best case scenario, I don't think they're winning more than 2. I don't even know if they get to 1.
Actually, I think they beat South Carolina. The defense still strong enough to do something.
South Carolina's
Ole
defense
Miss,
is better.
I think Ole Miss game. I think that's a closer game than you think. I think they get healthier when that time comes.
Yeah.
I think their defense is going to slow down that offense. We already know that offense is good, but is the offense good enough to play against a team like a defense like Oklahoma? And
Mm.
then you got Maine. That's a shooter. That's They don't
Well, they better
cooperate.
win that game. If they don't win that game, God, they're in trouble.
Yeah,
Uh,
they'll win that game, and then Missouri. I don't think Missouri's good. I think Oklahoma beats that, and then LSU. That's the game I want to see.
Alabama, don't forget
Oh
Alabama.
yeah, well Alabama I think will beat OU. They've always
Hmm.
said they struggle with OU.
Hmm.
I mean Alabama, OU struggle with Alabama.
Yeah,
So I think that's going to be the factor. Milrow, their defense is great, but when you got a guy like Milrow, it might not be that great. You know, that's
maybe.
bringing in the run and that's bringing in the pass. Then you got LSU. Is LSU if LSU could beat Oklahoma, that'd be great. But I think that's gonna be a lot closer than people think.
I
I
don't
think,
see OU going to LSU and beating them in Death Valley.
ooh, you make Death Valley sound like oh, it's something. It's all noise.
If
That's
it's at
all it
night,
is.
LSU ain't losing that game.
Just because you're going to the stadium doesn't mean you're going to lose. I mean, if
I'm
Texas went,
just
if Texas
saying.
went to different stadiums, if Georgia went to different stadiums, you know,
OU is not
they're going to
Texas.
play. Well, yeah, that's true. But my point is,
That's what I'm getting at.
just because you're going to a site, doesn't mean that makes that home team invincible.
All right.
You can have the crowd, but it doesn't mean
So,
everything.
so let's cut to the chase, Derek. How many SEC wins? We're just going to call Maine a win. How many SEC wins does OU get after this? They have one SEC win so far. Do they get one or two more or three more? What is your guess?
2 to 3 more. Two to
You
three
think
more.
2 to 3?
Yep, I see them being South Carolina, Missouri, and I see them possibly maybe being Ole Miss.
South Carolina, I kind of understand, except because South Carolina, you think OU's defense is good. South Carolina has a better defense than OU does. South Carolina kept them in that game against Bama. That defense was insane. It was their offense that could not get it together. Um, anyway, in Missouri, man, I don't know. I don't. You got to put a little bit of respect on those Missouri boys. But I guess we'll just see. We'll see what ends up happening.
So I take that back. I see OU have a chance to beat Alabama because Alabama is not playing like a top 10 team. Alabama is
Fair.
sucking right now, barely winning. You think that against the OU defense, what makes you think that Alabama's going to beat that defense? They're going to be turnovers.
Mm.
They're going to give Milrow hell. It's not going to look good.
Man, you did a
I tell you
180
about
on
that.
Milrow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just now thought about it. I was thinking about when you said South Carolina held, and
Yeah.
I was thinking, wait, Alabama hasn't done really since Georgia
Yeah.
came back on them.
Yeah.
They were exposed, and I think that's what's coming at them. Is
Yeah.
they just got exposed.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And we're going to do another deep dive on what's going on possibly with Alabama, the state of the SEC, and all that in another video. But before we do that, let's also go over Texas's schedule. I'll kind of start off on my predictions here. Texas hosting Georgia. That's going to be very interesting. I think that this game either puts Texas in a really, really strong position moving forward if they win, or this could possibly kind of change their confidence and change the direction of now there's a blueprint to beat Texas. And other teams have seen that they're beatable, and there's just a different aura around the program. Texas may feel not as confident as they are right now because right now they're very confident. I'm not. We're gonna do a prediction of this game in another video, so I'm not gonna get too much into that. But let's just say that they do beat Georgia because they are at home. I'm not sure Georgia is the same Georgia that they've been in the past. They go to Vanderbilt. Let's not kid ourselves here. This is not the same Vanderbilt that we're used to seeing. I'm not going to say this is going to be a top 10 team that they're going to go and visit, but do not sleep on Vanderbilt. Not saying that you should be on upset alert on this, but don't sleep on Vanderbilt. You host Florida, you're good on that. You go to Arkansas, most likely you're going to win that game. But again, this is kind of like Vanderbilt, but maybe a little bit worse. Do not sleep on Arkansas when they come to Fayetteville. Fayetteville will show up for this game. The team will show up for this game. This means a lot to the state of Arkansas. They will be ready for Texas when they come into town. Hosting Kentucky. Kentucky's been weird. They play better on the road than they do at home. Going to A&M. You know Kyle Field's going to pack that thing up. So moving forward after this OU game, I think that Texas has a very good shot at finishing undefeated in the regular season, going to the SEC championship. If they were to drop any games, I think that they drop about 2. I think that the Georgia, Arkansas, and A&M game are the biggest games for Texas moving forward that things could go out of their favor in. What about you, Derek?
So let me break this down. Texas is not going to take any team lightly because you know what they heard last year? They heard if Texas was in the SEC, there's no way they would have done what they did. Well, guess what? We're in the SEC. They heard that talk all day last year. You know, every day they heard that talk. So they're going to go in every game in the SEC and they're going to take them serious. And when they beat Georgia, they're going to plant that flag on Georgia,
Oh,
the
what?
jersey. Georgia, you know they're going to plant a flag on Georgia's jersey when they win that game. They did to Michigan. They did to Oklahoma. Apparently, they're going to plant all the big games. Okay,
So is
and they're
Michigan
definitely
is
going.
Michigan in the SEC?
No, I'm just saying
What
they're
what
planting the
SEC
top
teams
teams.
has Texas beat?
Georgia and Mississippi State.
They haven't beaten Georgia.
So I'm just telling you what's going to happen.
All right.
But
Well,
no,
I mean, to
okay.
come out here swinging, saying that Texas is all they're hearing about is beating the SEC teams, and you've only beaten Mississippi State, and then OU,
How bad did
who
Georgia?
was Big 12 last year.
Tell me this: how bad did Georgia beat Mississippi State? Was
I
it
think it
like
was a 10
a
point game.
difference? A 10-point game? What was Texas? 35-13? What?
Right, but
You're over.
I would
You,
not. I wouldn't look too deep into that game. You know that Georgia was playing with their food. They do have some red flags. I don't know if Georgia is the best that they. I don't think that they're a top 5 team from what I've seen. But I also could see that they've been preparing for Texas, and
yeah.
that Mississippi
They
State was just kind of like a let's just get this over with, and you
Well,
know,
there's a new dog in town, buddy, and that's Texas.
yeah. So which games, if you're a Texas fan, if you're afraid of dropping 1 or 2, which games are you circling as in going like, I just want to make sure we get through these games right here. Which ones would those be?
Georgia and Texas A&M, only because last time Texas played A&M, Texas
Yeah,
won, and I think it's gonna go hard on that one.
I agree. I agree. All right. And
Not
then
Arkansas.
do you, what? I know what you're doing. Yeah, I know. Y'all weren't concerned last time you came to Fayetteville, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We love surprising y'all. What do you think of, what do you think Texas's rankings going or not ranking, but record is going to be? And do you think that they make the SEC championship? And who would they play?
Well, I can tell you this: they do make the SEC championship.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. I really do. Even if they don't, they can have 3 losses. They're the only SEC team that can have 3 losses and still make the playoffs. I
Well,
do
no, no,
believe
no,
that.
not the playoffs. I'm not talking about the playoffs. I'm talking about the championship or the SEC championship.
Well, if they beat Georgia, it's theirs to lose. So,
Mm.
it,
All right.
yeah.
Um, I would disagree with you. 3 losses, you're not getting in the playoff unless that third loss is in the SEC championship. I think that if you make it to the SEC championship with 2 losses, you're in no matter what, possibly, probably. But if you don't make it to the SEC championship with 3 losses, I don't think you're getting into the playoff. Especially if look at these. If you get 3 losses, that would mean Georgia, Arkansas, A&M.
Yep.
So what good win do you have?
Oklahoma.
We just talked about that. They're a 6 to 7 win team max.
You said that.
Okay, you said 2 to 3 more wins. That's 7 wins. That's 6 to 7 wins. Okay, maybe 8 because of Maine. So you're saying 7 to 8
Yeah.
wins. You're saying 7 to 8 wins. That's so they lost to all the
And
other
they
ranked
and
teams that
they
they
beat
played.
and they could beat Alabama, to beat Ole Miss. You're
They didn't
looking
play.
at good games right
They
there.
didn't play. They didn't play any of those teams. I'm saying you because you mentioned they're the only 3-loss team that could get in. I disagree with you a bunch. If you look at
Of
Arkansas'
all the
schedule and you
teams,
look at Texas's schedule, Arkansas can afford 3 losses and possibly get in. Texas cannot.
Arkansas is not even ranked. How are they going to get 3 losses and get in?
If Arkansas finishes with only 3 losses, they have more of a likelihood to get into the championship than Texas.
Oh, you're talking about championships? I thought you
Or
were
not,
talking about
sorry,
playoffs.
not playoff. Sorry, playoff. They have more
Yeah,
of a
they're not
shot.
even ranked.
I know, but I'm saying scenario wise, you said 3 loss teams. I'm saying if Arkansas had 3 loss or if Texas had 3 loss, I'm not saying that'll happen. I'm just saying
But Georgia,
hypothetical situation here. Texas does not 3 losses would not help them. They don't play any ranked teams. The only ranked teams they play is
let's
Georgia.
put it this way: Georgia beats Texas. They don't go out of the top 5 right there.
Because if they lose to A&M, Georgia, and let's say Arkansas, that means all the ranked teams that they played outside of Oklahoma and Michigan, they lost to. And then they would have lost to an unranked Arkansas, most likely.
Yeah, maybe
I mean,
you're right.
Arkansas might be ranked. I don't know. I mean, they have LSU and Ole Miss at home. So, I mean, anything could happen. But I don't see how
You
you can
gotta
lose
under,
three of these games and get into the playoff.
you gotta understand. There's still games left, and there's a lot of people in the top 10 that are going to lose games too. So they're going to fall back to so many losses. So you're telling me a 3-loss team that was number 1 most of the season is not going to get in?
Look at what they have left and pick your 3 losses. Would you put that
It
team in the
would
playoff if they lost 3
Georgia,
of what's left? Hell no, I wouldn't.
Georgia, Arkansas, Texas A&M. That's
Yeah, they lose the last game of the season. No, I'm not putting them in the playoff.
they would get in. They would be like the farthest seeds you can
They
get.
lose to Georgia, they lose to Arkansas, and then they lose their last game. No, they're not getting into the playoff.
You're assuming there are going to be a lot of 2-loss teams in the top 10. They're not. There's going to be a 3 or two teams that are 3-loss that
So
are
I
going to be in the
think
top 10.
yeah, you're right there. You're right. We don't know who the other 3-loss, 2-loss teams that will be competing for that spot, but I do think that there's probably going to be 2-loss teams from the SEC. There's going to be a possibly undefeated team. Well, I guess that would be Texas, but you're going to have maybe 1 or 2 1-loss teams. Alabama could go through with 1 loss. Georgia could go through with 1 loss. Vanderbilt. No, I'm just kidding. Vanderbilt's. I think they have 2 losses, but Texas A&M. Texas A&M. You don't know how Texas A&M is going to look. But I guess that's besides the point here. I just kind of wanted to hit on that 3-loss scenario that you brought up. I completely disagree with you, but you are right. We don't know how everybody else's schedule will play out. It's just, to me, looking at the schedule that Texas has and what they have left, if they lost 3 more of their games, that would mean that they would probably lose to all the ranked matchups they have left on their schedule.
What happens if they beat Georgia and then they lose to
Right, but we were doing if they
Vanderbilt?
lost the yeah. See, does that help them? That doesn't help.
That just shows there's a curse playing Georgia before playing Vandy.
Yeah. That's right. That's funny. But let's move on from there. I think we kind of got the gist of Texas is in a really good spot to do big things, and we'll just kind of have to wait and see. I think there's a good possibility Texas does go undefeated all the way through. I think that they could also be stopped here by A&M at the end. Very interesting, and we'll see if they make it to the SEC playoff or the SEC championship and the college football playoff. But we're going to close it out here and then move on to the next video. Derek, let's talk about that SEC. Are they still the top dogs? Is the SEC the top conference in college football right now?
Well, if you say think they're the top conference right now, I don't think so. I think the Big Ten are the top conference. Their rankings tell them that they're the top conference. Now, will that be that way? Well, we'll see how things work out. But I do think that it will be the Big Ten in my mind as the best conference. It's only because Alabama losing the Vandy, you know, Georgia going close to Kentucky.
Hmm.
Those games are gonna hurt them. Texas and Ohio State most dominant in the conference at the time, but then Oregon beats Ohio State, so that weakens that a little bit. But they were like number 2, number 3 at the time.
Yeah,
So the still Penn State, I think they're frauds. I don't think they're going to be that high in the end.
I feel the
I
same
don't even
way.
think they will make. I don't think they'll make the Big Ten championship. It all depends on Georgia. If A&M goes in and runs out and goes undefeated in the SEC
Yeah,
after just losing to Notre Dame, then we might be talking because
yeah,
they don't play Georgia. And Georgia beats Texas. I mean, Texas beats Georgia. That's two really good teams going head to head and could
right.
be up in the SEC championship. So it all depends on the factors. If that scenario happened, I really do believe that the SEC would be better than the Big Ten.
See, I disagree with you there. I think the Big Ten is a solid conference, but if you look at playoff contenders, the SEC has more playoff contenders. When I think of playoff contenders of the Big Ten, I think of Ohio State, obviously. I think of Oregon, and Penn State can be in there. Outside of those teams, USC, nah. Michigan, nah. If I look at the SEC, I see Texas, I see Alabama, I see Georgia, and like you even mentioned, possibly an A&M. And we know from history, and I know every year is different. We're talking about this year, but I will say this is we know from history that Georgia can win championships. They can get it figured out. Alabama has a history of being able to figure it out, win championships. Kalen DeBoer went to the national championship last year with a team that had less talent. Um, A&M is looking very solid, like you were saying. If they can get through the SEC and win out, and they have a schedule that leans towards them. Like it it's a hopeful schedule for A&M. The remainder of their SEC slate outside of Texas. I think that Texas is going to be really their big test. And if they can get through the rest of the SEC, beat Texas, go to the SEC championship, win or lose in the SEC championship, they'll get into the playoff. So A&M is even, I think, could cause issues. A lot of people don't realize this, but A&M, their ratings, their composite rating for talent on that team, that roster is top 10. They have a top 10 talent roster at A&M. Um,
Mhm.
and you could even say maybe Ole Miss, if they get it figured out, they could possibly get in there and cause issues because Ole Miss has a bunch of talent. I'm not saying that Ole Miss is for sure going to make it, but I'm saying that if Ole Miss did get in there, I think that they would be a contender. Let's not forget about Tennessee. Tennessee still only has one SEC loss. They could get it together, and that high octane offense could be an issue. Whenever I compare the two conferences, to me, I just see more firepower and potential playoff disruptors in the SEC than I do in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I don't think. Here's my prediction on this. I think Alabama loses to Tennessee. They beat Missouri and they beat LSU. Then I see teams like Tennessee losing to Georgia.
Yeah.
That's going to be a loss.
Well,
They
LSU,
might
sorry
be
to cut you off real quick, but LSU, that's another one. They only have one loss right now. You
true.
know, in
But
Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly is
but
one
here,
is gotten there before, gotten the distance. But go on,
yeah.
Derek.
But here's the thing. Tennessee's going to lose to Georgia. That'll be two losses. Alabama's going to lose to Tennessee. That'll be two losses. But they'll beat those other two teams. But when you go to like LSU, let's look LSU.
Yeah.
LSU's going to lose to A&M. LSU could possibly lose to Arkansas.
Right.
LSU could lose to Alabama.
Right.
Or wait, no, yeah, that's right. And
Right.
then
You're right.
you you're starting to look at teams losing,
Right.
and,
And
and
that's
it
why I
looking
didn't
really
include
bad.
LSU in that earlier. I think it is a possibility, but LSU they have a tough road ahead of them. They really do.
Yep. But if Alabama loses to Tennessee,
Right, but man,
that
you are
brings it down.
discounting Alabama, man. You really are. And we'll get into that into another segment because I've
They're
got
going to
some
lose to
things
Oklahoma too.
I got some things to tell Derek in the next segment. But yeah, I don't know, Derek, you still taking the Big 10?
Yep, Big Ten all the way.
All right,
Final
that's
answer.
fair. Derek, I got to ask you, what did you think of that LSU Ole Miss game? And was the game won by LSU because LSU is a really good team and they're a possible playoff contender, SEC championship contender? Or is it because Lane Kiffin cannot win the big games? What say you?
I think I think if you have the help of that crowd at LSU, you gonna win. I guarantee you, if it was on a neutral site or was it Ole Miss would have won. Ole Miss had a hard time trying to hear the plays. They were yelling top of their lungs.
Yeah,
It's all pass plays. You could run it and get away with it, but they're a passing team, and that crowd's going to affect that.
yeah.
So they didn't have the capability to beat LSU in Death Valley.
Hmm.
But you know what? Everything can change as it goes on. LSU doesn't play at Death Valley in every game. So yeah, I don't think Lane Kiffin is going to do as well, even though they beat Ole Miss. But yeah, that's Lane Kiffin got lucky. They win in overtime. Imagine if it was over in Ole Miss.
Yeah. Do you mean that LSU got lucky? Or,
Yep,
yeah, yeah.
that
Um,
crowd helps.
Yeah, that was definitely Ellis or Ole Miss's game to lose, and that's what happened. Um, I mean, I've been saying this for a little while. Is Lane Kiffin just cannot win those games? We gave Ohio State kind of a beating in one of our episodes earlier. That was about how Ohio State could not close the game and how that may be something that prevents them from winning a national championship or winning certain playoff games in the future is the inability to close out the big games. And Ohio State has closed out bigger games than Lane Kiffin has, but it's kind of the same thing. I'm not really sure how good LSU is. I think, like Derek said, the crowd at LSU helped. The crowd at Death Valley, it was a night game under the lights. I think that helped out a lot, mixed with Lane Kiffin mixed with Lane Kiffin just not being able to close games. So we'll see what happens. We'll see where LSU's at and where Ole Miss is at. This is Ole Miss's second SEC loss. One of them was at home to Kentucky. So to me, I just think that Ole Miss was a little overrated this year. And there seems to be a distraction at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. I know that there's a certain job opening that may have something to do with that, but it just feels like that there may be a distraction or something's not clicking with that team, with all that talent and everything. And to me, Ole Miss lost that game. LSU did not win it. Any disagreements, agreements, or agreements, Derek?
No, I agree with everything you said.
Ah, good. Ah, that's great.
Mhm.
Well, I guess with that being said, we'll close this one out. Um, I guess real quick, Derek, what do you think LSU is going to do after this, and what do you think Ole Miss is going to do?
Well, Ole Miss is going to get a few key games won, but LSU, they're going to lose every game. No, I'm joking. No, they're going to lose all the key. They're going to lose to like really key games. I think they lose to Arkansas. That's what I believe.
I got a feeling that might happen too.
Yeah, poor Patrick.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that Ole Miss will probably drop a couple more. I think that they play Alabama. Um, I'm gonna double check that real quick. Do they play Alabama? I thought that you had said earlier that they played Alabama. No, it doesn't look like they do, but they do go to
No,
Arkansas. Um,
yeah, they'll win that game. LSU will beat Arkansas.
and they play Oklahoma. They play Georgia. They go at Florida versus Mississippi State. I think Ole Miss is actually in pretty good shape. I think that at most they drop two more games, but I do kind of
Oh,
think
you
that they will probably drop the Arkansas game just because they don't.
nope.
Kiffin doesn't win in Fayetteville. He hasn't won in Fayetteville. Um, so I would lean towards Arkansas in that one. So we'll just kind of have to see, but I'm guessing that Ole Miss will finish about 9-3, 8-4 in that range.
Sooners suck.
Yeah, no. Ole Miss will beat OU. All right. LSU. Did you say where you thought LSU may finish at?
LSU's they're definitely losing to Arkansas. I see that game going to be a loss to
I wouldn't
LSU.
say
Uh,
definitely.
it's positively. They're in Arkansas. They're not at Death Valley. Lake Kiffin can't win. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Arkansas wins by 3. Then they go to
Ooh.
A&M. They go
Yep.
at A&M. Guess what? 12th
Yeah,
man,
LSU has
lose.
a tough schedule. They really do.
Then they go. Then to Alabama. They beat Alabama. Then Florida. They beat Florida. They beat Vandy. They lose to OU. Because guess what?
They're
Death Valley
not
don't scare
losing to
OU.
OU. They're not losing to OU.
OU's always scared and scared about God. They're not scared about anybody else. Remember,
No.
even though they lost Texas.
No. No. All right, Derek. Well, I think that LSU will be somewhere between 7 to 9 wins max. I don't really know where in there. There's just a lot. I think that I agree with you. I do think that Arkansas will probably get them. Not going to say it's for sure. It is still a toss up. But I do think that I would lean Arkansas on this one. I would definitely pick A&M to beat them at Kyle Field. I'm going to lean Bama too. So yeah. Those are the ones that I have them losing, and then I think that they win their last three. So I see them losing three more and then winning out with three. So I think that would put them at 8-4, it looks like. So yeah. We'll see what happens. 8-4 would be out of the playoffs. Derek, today we are going to talk about Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. Is there possibly a QB battle happening in Austin, Texas?
No, there is no QB battle happening in Austin, Texas, because you know why? Sarkisian came out and said it. He doesn't want to mess up the chemistry and doing a QB battle. He wants his wants his eye to wins. Don't mess up any chemistry. Yes, Lewis is out. he had to bring somebody in, but he didn't
Yep.
want that in the beginning. But you gotta do what you gotta do. The team knew that, so it didn't mess up anything. All it did was say, "Okay, we
Yep.
understand the situation. We gotta fix this situation." Now Urs is back. He is king. He is going to win this thing. He's going to win the national title. Archman's going to learn a lot. It's going to pay off for next year. He will probably be the front runner for the Heisman. He will bring a whole different dynamic next year to the run. I mean, the guy's fast. So yeah, I see Urs going playing all the way through because Urs right now is in line to getting picked up in the top 5, top 6, top 7 in the NFL draft. So yeah.
Okay. So how big? I've got two questions for you. Derek's our Texas fan on the show, so he's pretty well read on a lot of this. But how big is the leash for Quinn Ewers whenever it comes to turnovers in a game before he'll get yanked?
Um, it's pretty big. Unless they lose a game, he's not getting taken out. And it depends how bad how bad it is. Was it his fault that they lost?
Yeah.
Uh, did he score a lot of points? That's another thing, but that's the only reason I can see with the loss. But Urs went to the playoffs. He was the
Yeah.
guy last year. Why would you mess it up? So yeah, yeah.
Well, the reason I asked is just because I know in the OU game there were some people trying to say put Arch in. I think that there were crowd chants yelling, "We want Arch," things like that. Um, what was your take on that?
Okay.
Do you think that it's a good thing that Arch was not put in? Do you think that Ewers should have a long leash? Do you think Ewers is the best chance to win these games? Now, you did say Ewers did make it to the playoffs last year. He didn't win. So,
Well, you gotta understand, they both have a great chance to win the Natty.
yeah,
A
but who do
lot of
you
people think.
think gives them the best chance?
I mean, I really think ours, but I don't think it's going to happen because
Mm.
Ivers has the experience, and why mess up that and put
But
somebody else who hasn't really played a big time team yet
right.
and
But if
put them in,
why do you think that Arch would be the best chance to win?
Well, Arch, he has the run game that Ewers doesn't. He has
Mm.
a more accurate deep ball than Ewers doesn't. But that doesn't matter when you have chemistry. I'm not saying that Arch doesn't have chemistry with his team. I just think Ewers has more chemistry.
Mm.
And those people who were chanting "Bring Arch in," they don't know crap what they're talking about. You know what? You gotta understand going in this game. You knew Ewers was coming out of game form. You knew he's gonna have to get back in game form. You see this during Georgia, then you might want to start questioning things, but I still win.
Yeah.
If they beat Georgia, that's a win against a really good program.
Right.
So so you beat Georgia, don't take them out because if they can beat Georgia, they're going to beat the rest of everything's just going to fall in their lap. It's going to be a domino effect of win, 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 win.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. Um
Mm.
I guess one more point on that is you did to me it's interesting that you say if it were you would think that Arch would be the best chance to win. If you were in Sark's place, how long of a leash would you suggest Sark? Like how long of a leash would you suggest Ewers get? 2 turnovers, 3 turnovers, 1 turnover. I know one would be ridiculous, but what kind of things what would you do to be like, you know what? We're from here on out, Arch is going to be the guy that we want starting.
Well, if he continues to overthrow receivers like he did last game, and he did a one game before, yeah, I'm going to see that's a problem, especially if he does it twice. But he hasn't done it twice. But if it's
Yeah.
like he throws an interception, and then another interception happens because the receiver didn't catch the ball and tips up in the air, that's not Arch's fault. That's the
Yeah.
receiver's fault. So it depends on the scenario because the same thing could apply with Arch. Arch could have thrown and got tipped up, and there's nothing you can do about it. But I mean, I've seen Arch actually eye receivers too in certain games as well. And I was like sitting there in the game, was like, put eye at your target, man. Look around, then throw it to him. But that's where the experience comes.
Yeah.
He'll learn. So yeah,
Okay. And one last thing. This was this was the one I was trying to remember. Um, but next year, yours, let's say this year, yours makes it all the way through, finishes the season. I don't know the outcome. Let's just say that it's pretty good. It's either a drive in the playoffs or a national championship game. What happens if yours decides to come back for one more year?
that'd be the worst thing he ever did.
Do
Because
you
I
think
promise you
that he
this,
would
Arch will be
transfer?
starting.
Do you think that he would get benched? Do you think he would start? What do you think would happen?
I think he would start. I think they're gonna tell him. They're gonna say, "Go to the draft. You're a top 10 pick. Why would you jeopardize this?"
Yep.
And let you know
Yep.
this. Arch is starting. Behind the scenes, I would say, let you know,
Hmm.
Arch is starting. You are ready. Go.
Yep.
There are teams that want you. You're going to get more money in the NFL than you are going to be here. You had your
Yep.
time. Don't mess it up.
All right. Well, I think that's going to conclude this segment. Derek, we're going to talk about Alabama. Do you think the Alabama Crimson Tide are still a national championship contender? Also, if not a national championship contender, are they a playoff contender? Do they make it to the college football playoff?
I think they have zero chance of winning the national championship. Do I think they make the playoffs? Yeah, they can. But I still think they're going to lose a couple more games and they're not getting in. That Vanderbilt loss
Oh, so
screwed
you're
them.
saying they're
Yeah,
not. You don't think that they will?
I believe they won't. I think they have a better chance of getting the playoffs than they win the Natty.
Yeah, yeah,
That's for
yeah.
sure.
You think that they've got a
But
good you think they have a shot at getting in, but you don't think that they will. If you're leaning
I
towards
don't think they will.
they're one of the first out.
Oh yeah, they're definitely going home. They're not winning. They're going to lose to Oklahoma. They're going
Oh
to
my
lose
god, get
to
out of here.
Tennessee.
They're not losing to
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
they're losing to Tennessee and they're losing to Oklahoma. They're out.
Okay. All right. Well, if they're out of the playoff, they're not winning a natty in your opinion. So well, that's a fact if they're not in the playoff, but
Zero.
um I'm going to say look, I've said this quite a bit all season long. I followed Kalen DeBoer a lot through Washington. What we saw against South Carolina was nothing new to me. What we saw against Georgia was nothing new to anybody who's watched Kalen DeBoer teams. He gives up big leads, but it's crazy how if Kalen DeBoer's team is ahead by any margin, if they're ahead, they let the other team have life and come back just to get crushed and sent back to the ground. You saw it against Georgia. They were up big against Georgia, let Georgia come back. Georgia even took the lead, and then Alabama finished it. You saw it with South Carolina. Alabama had the lead 14-3, and then South Carolina came back, took the lead, and then Alabama reclaimed it. And it got really interesting there at the end of that game. But my opinion, I think that Alabama will beat Tennessee this weekend. I think that Alabama, I, I could see them. Oh, they're at OU. I thought they hosted OU. I think that Alabama at most they drop one more game. I think that Alabama will make the playoff, and I think that they may surprise one or two teams in the playoff. Derek, would they play two games to get to the championship, or is it three? You're muted.
Okay, my camera just zoomed in. Okay, there we go.
Oh,
All
is
right,
that
there
what
we
you're
go.
doing over there? It's like, what are you
AI
doing?
zooms in when you put it towards the headset. It was supposed to zoom back out, but it wasn't zooming back out. I was like, what the hell?
Oh,
I said that was a cool feature. You get it like
all right.
loser.
Don't be doing this again. Let's zoom out. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool about this thing. But
Yeah.
anyways,
In
okay,
the
what was the
playoff,
question again?
yeah, in the playoff,
Say
do
again.
you have to win 3 games to get to the national championship, or is it two?
Um, with Alabama, they need to win every game except one.
Yeah, yeah, but
Oh,
if you're in the
to get in the
playoff,
playoffs, I mean. Oh, if they're in the playoffs, they're not gonna be in
yeah,
the
so they
top
wouldn't
seed.
they wouldn't get the bye.
Or they would get they'll play at home more than likely. Or no, maybe not. Depends. Um, I don't think they'll play at home. I think they'll play somewhere because it'll be a high seed. But I do believe it takes win and then you play one of the bye teams, and then it goes a win and then it goes to semis, and then
Yeah.
win it
Okay.
goes into the finals.
Oh man, this playoff is gonna be so awesome. Um, my prediction, I do think that Alabama gets in there, and I think like what Derek was saying, if they get in there, it's probably going to be a higher seed where they have to play an extra game. So we'll just have to wait and see. Um, Derek is he's not high on Alabama. He's very low on him, being a negative Nancy about the Crimson Tide. But I have faith for them. I think that they're on the right track, and I think that they've got a really good coach leading it. We'll just see what happens. Let's not forget Nick Saban, his first year, lost to Louisiana Monroe. And let's not act like that Kalen DeBoer got all of Nick Saban's players. So before you start using that excuse that he took over a better program, sure, but Kalen DeBoer had to go out and get his own players too. Just going to put that out there. And that's how we're going to close this thing. Derek, let's talk Deion Sanders. Do you think so far Deion has overachieved, underachieved, or performed about what you and everybody else was expecting? Where do you see him?
I actually they won more games than I thought they were gonna win, and guess what? Travis Hunter's out.
He's
So
coming back. He's coming back next week.
they say he's coming back. I thought he was out.
He's coming back next week. Last update I saw.
Well, here's the thing about playing
I'll
both ways.
double check that.
That's the worst thing you can do because you're playing more. You're playing more and
Yeah,
more.
he's on track. Real quick, he's on track to play against Arizona. So
Yeah, but no. I think Nebraska loss was a eye dropper. The Kansas State game. I didn't think it was going to be that close, but it proves that uh, they're actually better than I thought. So yeah, I see them winning Arizona. I see them losing Cincinnati. I see them beating Texas
wait, wait,
Tech.
wait, wait, wait,
I
wait,
see,
wait. You said you see them winning at Arizona?
yes, I see them winning at Arizona. I
Okay.
think Dion is a hype guy. He gets pumped and he pumps these guys up. I think he's done it through his professional career. I mean, he's very talented when he was a professional, and these guys came to his team because who he was, and they feed off that. And that feeding off is going to get them past Arizona. It will not get them past the Bearcats of Cincinnati. It will get them past Red Raiders. It will get them past Utah since Cam Rising's out. It will get them past Kansas. and it will not get past Oklahoma State. So yeah,
Okay, so you've got them beating Arizona. Um, what were the other
losing to
two? I'm sorry, I
Cincy.
was looking at the schedule.
They're only losing to Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. Everybody else they're beating.
They're only losing to Cincinnati and Oklahoma State.
Yep. And Cincinnati might be a win. I'm just saying.
Really? So you think that they're going to go? Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 wins.
Yeah.
You
Well,
you think
Cam
they're
Rice
going to
is not.
Lubbock and beating them?
Yeah,
Texas Tech is 3-0 in conference play right now.
doesn't matter. Texas Tech is Texas Tech, but you know
Have you
what?
seen those Lubbock games?
Yeah, that doesn't matter. I think Colorado, I will beat them.
Okay. Hmm.
If Cam Rising wasn't hurt, I see Utah beating them. But now Cam Rising's hurt, and guess what? Cam
Hmm.
Rising's out for the season.
Yeah.
He can't play anymore. He's lost all eligibility. He has to go straight to the draft.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. So you think about 8 wins, possibly 9.
Yeah,
Okay. Um. So that means you think that he's going. You think so far he's overachieved, and you think that he's going to continue to overachieve. So I think the line for Colorado was around 4 wins this year. I don't remember the specific number, but I think it was right around 4. The over under was about 4. Um, and that's what they're at right now. It could have been slightly higher. It could have been 5, but I think it was right around 4. Um, yeah, I think that they are going to win 2 games max, 2 more games max. When I look at their resume and who they've beaten, losing to Nebraska was kind of like, really? And they got dominated by Nebraska, let's be honest. Um, win at Colorado State doesn't say much. A win against Baylor doesn't say much. And that was at home, and it went to overtime. They were lucky to put that to overtime. It was a Hail Mary play at the end of the game that sent that game to overtime. Very lucky. Baylor's not a very good squad. At UCF, they won 48-21. Pretty dominating performance, but UCF is they're not very good. They're 3-3 right now, and UCF has lost the last 3 games straight. So they lost to Florida. Um,
they
let's
barely
see.
beat Cincinnati. I mean, barely lost to Cincinnati.
Well, we'll see. Like I said, I think that they could maybe get 2 wins. So Cincinnati may be one of them. I don't think they're going to win at Arizona. Um, and Kansas State, I'm going to put this out there as well. I think Kansas State is overrated. I don't think they're that great of a team. Maybe they are, but I remember just seeing them get obliterated by BYU. I know sometimes it just happens, but I'm just not convinced after watching that game that Kansas State was really that great of a team. I feel the same way around about Colorado. If I were to predict which games that they win, I think that, like you said, Cincinnati. I think that they can maybe get one against Cincinnati, and then
Texas Tech,
maybe
man.
I don't think they're going to go to Lubbock and beat
They
them.
barely, they almost, Cincinnati almost beat Texas Tech
I I
at
just
Texas Tech.
I just don't think I think Lubbock is going to show up for that game, and it's going to be too much. Um, uh, I'd say that they might be able to get one on Oklahoma State. I think Utah is going to match up well with them and is going to shut them down. Um, at Kansas, well, I mean, I'm going to take at Kansas. That's the one that I think that they get. Not Oklahoma State. I'm going to say that they beat Cincinnati and Kansas, but I guess there's a possibility they could get a 7th, but I don't think they get more than 6 this year. I guess you could say that means that he's overachieving. The unfortunate thing for Dion is he hypes them up so much that 6 wins seems like it's underachieving, you know? So, but I'm going to say overall overachieving if he can get to 6 wins. If they get over 6 wins, um, uh, hey, good job. That is better, a lot better than we all thought. And if they get to 9 wins, like Derek said, woo, that the Dion experiment is working for sure. So we're going to close this one out. Derek, let's talk about those Texas Longhorns and the Georgia Bulldogs. Who is going to be the victor here in Austin, Texas on Saturday?
I've been hearing a lot of things about that game. I hear that Georgia's going to this game thinking it's life or death. Texas going in there to prove a point. And Texas is going to annihilate their beyond that 3.5 point spread. I hear it all. And this is coming from experts as well, from ESPN to all these other networks
Experts.
and YouTubers and podcasts. But here's the thing: realistically, I don't think Georgia can compete against Texas. I don't think they compete in Georgia. I don't think they compete in Texas. I think Texas is a more dominant team. I think that 3.5 is giving a gift basket to Georgia. If you don't bet the minus 3.5, you're going to lose a lot of money, a little bit of money. How much you bet, you're going to lose it. I think Texas goes in there, it goes in hot, beats Georgia, and doesn't let go of the reins. I think this is looking like an Alabama Georgia game in the first half, but that goes all 4 quarters. So Texas will beat Georgia.
All right. And Derek, real quick, you're a little out of focus on the camera, just so you know. There you go. Now you're more in focus. You're back. I could tell that you were out of focus by what you were saying about your game prediction. No, I'm just kidding. For
Hmm.
me, I I've been thinking about this matchup quite a bit, and preseason, I just had a feeling that Texas was going to beat Georgia. I was skeptical about Texas overall and didn't want to jump the gun on predicting how good they are. I wanted to see it first. But I did think that Georgia would be a big opportunity for them to get on that track. And I know that Texas shows up to these big games, especially when the whole nation is going to be watching or whenever there's a large group of people that are talking crap about the game and talking crap about Texas doesn't have a shot. Texas does have the athletes to compete, they have the coaching staff to compete, and, you know, I think that they have a very good shot at winning this game, and it being in Austin makes it even more winnable. And last but not least, let's be honest here, this is not a slight at Texas fans, but you're not playing the Georgia of the past. And you did not play the Alabama of the past last year either. Huge win, not taking anything away from it. It still is a very huge win, but you're coming into the SEC at the perfect time where you're getting everything is rolling in your favor. Some of these teams are not what they used to be. And Georgia, we've all watched them. We've been watching Alabama too. These teams are not dominating other teams like they used to. And I think that Georgia is very beatable. And I think that Texas has the athletes. And again, I think they have the coaching staff to make it happen. I think that Texas could even win by 2 or more scores in this one. It will be crazy to actually see that happen. But I'm just saying, I don't think I would be that surprised if that happens. But once seeing it, it's going to have to kind of soak in, that Georgia is going to get beat that bad. But I do think that Texas is going to win this game as well. And one other thing, too, since Derek didn't want to add anything, he didn't want to add anything. I think that this is a big opportunity for Texas to get that SEC nod of acceptance. OU is going to take a little while to earn the SEC nod, but if you beat Georgia, regardless of what I was saying about Georgia not being as dominant as they have in the past, it would still put Texas as the number one team in the conference without a doubt. So I do want to put that out to
Mhm.
Texas fans. You guys will be number one in the conference for sure. Um, I just wish that we'd see a stronger Georgia team come to Austin as a like just a fan of college football. It would have been really cool to see an undefeated Georgia come in here and really battle it out. But I do think that Texas is there's a good possibility they could win this thing by 2 or more scores. Derek, I'm going to ask you,
Mhm.
if Texas does not win this game, does it change your perception of the Longhorn football team, where they're at right now? Do you think that Georgia is that good of a football team? And is it acceptable for Texas to lose to them at home?
Well, anything's possible. Yeah, I can see him losing, but uh, do I want to make that bet? Nope.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose money. I want to make money.
Right.
But
But
Georgia
you
is
were
a
saying that
capable
they
team.
should dominate them. You were saying Texas should dominate them. If they don't, is that a reflection on Texas not being as good as you thought they were? Georgia not being as good as you thought they were? A mixture of both? What do you take from Texas, though, from this if they lose
I
this
think
football game?
I think Georgia finds the spark they needed. I think Texas still plays great. If Georgia does win, it's only because Georgia finally found their game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because they have recruits to be able to do it. They're just not performing to it.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess we'll end there. We're gonna do a few other games and for next week as well. So we'll just go on to the next one here. We're gonna do the Arkansas hosting LSU game. This is gonna be 6 o'clock or 6:30, I think. 6:30 in Fayetteville. Derek, what do you think is gonna happen in this one?
Whoa. I want to jinx your team. So Arkansas is winning all the way. They're going to win by 40. It's going to be 40 to nothing.
It's 90.
LSU doesn't have a chance.
It's Hogs by
Uh,
90.
oh yeah, Hogs by 90. Yeah, no, 99. No, no, it's Hogs by 69.
Oh,
Okay. No, but no. Actually, I think LSU comes in strong in the beginning.
yep.
Arkansas, it just stays up ahead of LSU just barely, and it comes down to the wire. We're not in Death Valley, so guess what? Arkansas wins, and they win by 3. But it will be a close game. You're going to be yelling. You're going to be hollering. It's going to get all the actions, fumbles, interceptions. It's going to be a highlight. It's going to be a better highlight than the Georgia Texas game. Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's
all
going to be
right.
great.
Oh, that's funny. Um, I think both of those games are at the same time, actually, are they?
Hmm. I don't.
Is
Well, yeah,
Texas
it's
at
a night game.
6:32? Or are they're
Texas
during
is
the day, aren't they, actually? I think that's a day
not
game.
this game.
No,
Nope.
no, it is
That's
at
at night.
night. Yeah, so they're both of these games are at 6:30.
Yep.
Let's see here. Okay, so
Yeah.
Arkansas game's
Those.
at 6, not 6:30. My bad. Um, but yeah, they're basically at the same time. That's going to be really interesting. That's going to be fun to kind of see where the audience goes for those two games and just
Mhm.
kind of changing it back and forth. But yeah, I do agree with Derek on mostly what he said about this one. I think that this is, like Derek said, this is not Death Valley. This is in Fayetteville. And if you guys watched the Tennessee game, you saw how electric Fayetteville can get. They're going to be even more electric for LSU coming. They know
And
that
also,
they can compete. And here's the other thing: LSU is the number 8 team in the nation right now. It's a top 10, another top 10 team coming to Fayetteville. The thing is, I personally do not think LSU is a top 10 team. Which also makes me lean towards Arkansas even more because of that. But I think that the top 10 aura around it is going to bring a huge crowd. The players are going to be pumped. They're going to be excited. I know LSU will be excited for this game too, but it will be a whole different level for the Arkansas team in this matchup. And I think that because of that, they're also coming off of a bye. Sam Pittman has not lost a game off of a bye. Now, records are meant to be broken, unfortunately, and hopefully that one stays unbroken for Razorback fans like myself. But we will see. I'm going to take Arkansas in a close one as well. They proved to me that they can win a one-score game, and it was a top 10 conference game. I think they can do it again against LSU. So I'm going to take Arkansas by 3. Derek, one more question for you about this game. Do you think, and I hope you're not muted, so you're ready to answer it. Do
Mhm.
you,
I am.
how much scoring is going to be in this game? Do you think it's going to be in the 20s, the teens, the 30s? What is the scoring going to look like in this game?
30s, 20s.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Um, I think if Arkansas has to stay in this one, they have to score. And LSU's defense is not good enough to prevent Arkansas from scoring in the 20s or 30s. And if it's going to be close, I think it'll be in the 20s and 30s as well. I think it's going to be about, I think it's going to be 30 to 27. That's what I think. What about you?
30 to 27 sounds about right.
All right. All right. Well, let's go to the next game then, Derek. What is let's see here. What was it? What was that third game?
Oh, you don't know?
Alabama. Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm about to tell you.
Yep.
I forgot.
Alabama at Tennessee. I'll go first on this one. For anybody who's been following the channel a decent amount, I am all in on Alabama. I'm not saying they're going to win a national championship, but I will say this. I think Alabama has a good squad and they win close games. And especially if they take the lead early on this one, they will let the lead go and then they will crush Tennessee's dream at the end of the game. I'm going to take Alabama in a close one by 3 points or less. And again, I think that Alabama starts on top in this game. I think Tennessee's got some things to figure out on offense. Alabama's going to start out on top. Tennessee's going to start figuring it out. They're going to come back, and it looks like they're going to take the lead. And then Alabama's going to reclaim the lead at the end and win this football game. I'm going to take the Tide by 3 or less in a close nail biter. Crazy things are going to happen at the end of this game. I guarantee it.
All right. Yeah. So here's the thing. My UT from another mother is gonna win this thing. You know why? Even though they have the hideous orange, they still gonna be Alabama because they also UT. You can call Texas TEX, but in my mind, it's always UT. And they're going to have nightmares from the last year against Texas. And they're going to see UT with Tennessee. And they're going to be like, oh, shit. It's just the same team. It's not orange, kind of faded, kind of uglier. But you know what? Tennessee wins this. They win it by more than 10 points. I see Alabama being embarrassed because they choked against Vanderbilt. They almost choked against their last game. And I'm assuming that was what, South Carolina? Was it South Carolina?
Yeah, it was South Carolina.
Well, yeah, they almost choked against South Carolina. I mean, you can think of so many ways of losing that game. You know, interception. They almost score. They
The
almost tied
almost
it with
kneel
2 points.
down. Remember that? The kneel down
Oh
almost in
yeah,
the end zone.
yeah. Well, we'll get to that here in a second.
Oh, okay.
They
Spoiler alert.
they lose the onside. I don't know how many
Yeah.
times they kept missing the onside. They go, oh, we got the interception. We won. Let me back up 5 yards and kneel in the end zone to get a safety to tie up the game. Guess what? He almost did, but his teammate was like, whoa. Hold up, buddy. No, this
Hold
time.
up.
Well, guess what? This is
Yep.
going to happen against Tennessee. Tennessee's a lot stronger than South Carolina. Tennessee wins by 10 or 14 points.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
that's pretty ballsy, Derek. I'm gonna be honest with you. Tennessee's not winning by 2 scores.
it's happening. It's in the books. Put your money on that one. You're going to win
It's
a lot of money.
I'll put some money on with you maybe, but they're not winning by 2 scores. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. That being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed our predictions for this upcoming weekend. Please let us know what you think down below in the comment section. Do you think that Derek's takes are more on point, or do you think mine are? Or do you think we're both full of it? And last but not least, please hit that subscribe button. It really does help our channel. It lets YouTube know that our content is fire and that we have the greatest takes here on YouTube. So please hit that subscribe button, like the video, share it. And for Derek, put a horns down at the bottom and let him know that the Longhorns are not going to go undefeated this year. That being said, thanks for watching and see you guys next time.